Okay, so we should be live. Hopefully, hopefully we're live. Moderate helps. Moderation helps everybody. Blah blah blah. Hey. Okay, so I have not done it this way with OBS, so I may not be in the right settings for this. Hopefully, I will be. Alrighty. Okay, so I can see the chat. I should be streaming. I hope I'm streaming. This is when you need a friend here to help you stream. Hold on. Let's see if we are streaming. First. Oh, I am streaming. Okay. I don't know if I'm streaming vertically though. All my settings are vertical, but I don't know if I'm streaming in the vertical format right now. Let's see what's going on. Make sure our settings are on. We're on OBS here, so come on, let's go. Show me that I am streaming. Okay, so I should be streaming. Hopefully everything's good. There's no fade to black thing going on here. So hopefully we're good with the streaming part. But layoff AI and making your own way. I figured I'd stream more and talk about these sorts of things here on this channel because it makes more sense. I think a lot more people are louder here outside of Facebook about some of the things that are going on and maybe X, right? And there's a lot of people who are very uncertain, who used to have jobs that if you had this degree, if you had this training and you had this experience, you pretty much they felt or it was alluded to that you'd be okay for the rest of your life. And most of the people who knew that did not work in those industries or haven't worked in those industries for a very long time, right? So they went and they got into coding boot camps. They went and some of them got all these certifications to go into these jobs that they thought would give them the financial security. Like, hey, I won't have to worry about layoff, or if I get laid off, I'll get a job real quick. And things are quickly changing for a lot of people. And for those who don't stay in those spaces of being around people who work in tech, whether you're talking about administrative or you're talking about people who are doing more of the technical aspects, developers, data architects, you don't really understand what it's like to be in a situation where, oh crap, I'm getting laid off. Like there are people where, your key fobs to get into work, where they went into work and they didn't find out that they were laid off until the key fob didn't work, right? And, that kind of crap happened at Google. For those of you who don't remember, like Google didn't even send out the email or have people in one of those group HR meetings. They let people drive to the Google campus to find out that all these people had gotten laid off. So imagine being in that situation where you drove to work and then you turn around and you're trying to get your key fob, and then a bunch of coworkers are around you and their key fob don't work, and then you see some people's key fob works, only to find out that y'all was part of the damn layoff. After you spent your gas, you got up. Like, I remember that layoff. That was horrible, and that's happening more often. So I guess people used to complain a lot about, hey, the massive HR layoff. So what would happen is, they call you meet in HR, you're on Zoom. Even when you're in the office, they put you on Zoom. They won't even let people go into the HR office, for all the back to work mandates. When they lay you off, they don't want to see your face. And these are people who are in jobs that are supposed to be really good and we're secure. So I have a bunch of friends. We work in tech, and some of them have gotten laid off. Some of them have not found a job yet, right? And it's out there. So when people are trying to make the push to go into an industry and they don't have the context of what's a good place to be in an industry, you can wind up like some of my friends. Because some of my friends, they went to the coding boot camps. They went, and for those who don't remember those, that was a big thing when everyone was trying to, like, that's when a whole bunch of startup money was all over the place in certain cities and they needed more engineers and they really don't care. And so they were sponsoring these coding boot camps. So if you wanted to change your life, you got to one of these coding boot camps, took out a massive loan. Some of these boot camps were like $50,000, $60,000. And in 6-7 months, you were supposed to have all this knowledge because you were in these things like all day. And you were supposed to be able to be, for some of them, promised to get you a job. So they had placement. Now, at the time, startup money was flush and companies didn't care about the engineer. They just needed enough people to take up space for the money they were spending. And I remember them times. So a couple of my friends who were in different industries went and did that. And some of them ain't working right now. Because why? Because when you're in stuff like tech, when you're going to be a software developer, you're going to be an engineer, you actually have to keep learning. You actually have to go to the conferences. You actually have to keep up with what's going on. You need to be in these different places. And a lot of them did not do that. Some of them started YouTube channels and my life as a junior software developer living in blah, blah, blah. Like there's a bunch of videos like that. And those are some of the things that they did, you know, and what good is it when now you're laid off and can't get a freaking job? You know, why? It just doesn't make any sense. But that's what happened with a lot of people. Even here on this platform, there are people who have gotten, you know, good for them software development jobs who, like a year later, some folks have gotten laid off or some people disappeared off of YouTube because they got laid off. They're not here because what are they going to do? They're going to do another layoff video and then we're following them and then they disappear because they're trying to get another job. So understand there are certain positions in tech that are going to be very hard to get at a junior level because companies essentially don't necessarily need you to do the grunt work. Because the reason why coding boot camps work so well is because there was a lot of tech jobs that were basically grunt work. You needed someone to do it, and you needed them to have a basic level of skill in how to code. Doesn't mean they were good coders. That's why, you know, I love my friends to death, but you had software that they were involved with that wasn't done very well. Well, when you have a bunch of people who just learned how to code, you know, 9 months ago, you can't expect them to catch all the little things because they're fresh to us. They don't have the experience, right? And that was, you know, that was the thing for a while. And now you can't get it. You have too many other, you know, tools like Claude and Copilot and Manus and all the others that are much better at that than someone who just learned how to code and needs to write code for whatever project that they're working on, whether at work. And so you don't necessarily need as many people to do the grunt work of tech. And what you're seeing is a lot of massive downsizing. So Oracle let go, 30,000 people a few days ago, a couple of days ago, right? That's where it's headed. You know, that's where it's headed. So for those of you who are in that spectrum of tech, because I know folks who are kind of afraid, you know, and they're not even junior developers. They're in different aspects of tech. Some of it's cybersecurity. You know, I'm hearing folks in cybersecurity are kind of scared because of the nature of what cybersecurity is and the type of jobs in cybersecurity. It's a lot of jobs are going to be weeded out because a lot of it was back and forth paperwork and grunt work. And if that can be automated, or if that could be taken care of by having a coding assistant, then there's no need to hire people for those jobs. However, the light at maybe the end of the tunnel for a lot of people who are in those spaces is that the cost of having companies have Claude or have ChatGPT or any other like Copilot is very extreme right now. And so like, if you didn't pay attention, like GitHub closed access to Copilot. Like you can't get any of the other Copilot accounts right now. And who knows if they'll open that back up, because the cost right now to have some type of LLM assist you in a nicer model, a higher level model, is still relatively cheap compared to the cost of delivering it. And soon those prices are going to go up and some models are going to cut accessibility. And for those of you who are trying to up level your skills because you work in a tech job, and even my non-technical people, if you don't understand how to use these tools to be more productive at work, you will not be there soon, because they're going to hire people who they could be younger than you. It doesn't matter, as long as they know how to use those tools. They're going to get hired. I'm telling you right now. I see jobs. I work and consult with other companies, and they're like, oh, I need someone to do that. And I have to consult. Now, I use these tools. I'm proficient. I'm an expert using a lot of these tools for the things that we build out. And what I'm finding is I have to tell my clients, like, oh yeah, if they use this, they're going to need to know that. And no one on their team knows how to use these tools in that way that they need to do their job for things that they paid me to build. And all I can see is like, damn, if this person don't get trained, they're going to be out of a job. And I'm telling you this as someone who's a consultant, they're going to be out of a job. Depending on what you do, this potentially could be you. So be very careful out there, be very careful. Start playing with this stuff. If you work in any type of administrative, if you work in accounting, if you work in legal and you were a legal secretary, learn how to use these tools and show your boss that you know how to use them so that you can keep your job or even go somewhere else where they'll pay you more because you do have the knowledge of using these tools while they are still free or low cost. Because if they're hiring people like me to go into their business to do these transformations, these tech AI automation transformations, I got to report that, hey, your team is going to need to know this, this, and this. And people who are not getting on board and learning it are going to be out. Now, I know we're focusing a lot on the larger companies that are doing this sort of things, but there's a lot of smaller companies. Let me look. Small businesses have a mindset of how can I cut costs? So, for example, we build voice AIs to pick up phones and chat AIs to work with the voice AI so that they can, input information, handle certain things that would normally be office work for somebody, and basically eliminate a lot of those jobs. So if you were someone who worked the front desk, you worked in a call center environment, you're in trouble. So you need to either upskill into something else, change your industry, or learn the tools well enough so that you can use them and implement them. Because if you can't, you're going to be one of the people unemployed, struggling to figure out how you're going to make ends meet, and maybe have to go for a lower end job that doesn't require all those things. It's not funny out there. And I know people feel the way they feel about AI. It is better for you to be curious at this point. It is better for you to figure out, how can I use this? And if you work in a job, whether it's tech or not, check if they're using AI. Most of them are. They're just using it badly. Be that person who learns how to use it if you still need that job. Now, if you're in a space where, if you lose your job, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to really affect you. You have other income coming in. You have multiple streams of income. Maybe you have a YouTube channel that's really monetized well, or you're on TikTok and really monetized well, where if you lost your job today, it's not going to affect you. Then sure, do what you want to do. You still should understand these tools, because even on these platforms and others, they're heavily using different parts of AI for different things. And it can help you, put out more videos and be more productive to make all of this stuff a heck of a lot easier. So don't poo-poo it. But for those of you who have not built side income, you have not built or learned how to monetize your skills in a way, you really need to be on top of a lot of AI stuff. Now, it's very overwhelming. Don't get me wrong. It is very, very overwhelming in the subject of AI. Absolutely, it's an overwhelming thing that goes down. Because if you go on YouTube, it is a bunch of information on how to use AI and build automations and do this, and you should do this, and you should do that. There's a lot of that going on here on YouTube. But if you learn just a little bit of something, particularly if it applies to your particular job you do or your industry, you will be better off. Or if you wanted to upskill and change an industry or get a higher paying job, if you're in that mode, you can use a lot of these skills and learn from people here on YouTube in order to do that. So I would suggest doing that. I would also suggest making sure that you are also considering, how can I build a side income, whether you're doing it as a content creator or whether you choose to do something else. Maybe you could be a consultant because you do have a skill set that's monetizable and there's people out there willing to pay you for it. Whatever you do, maybe it's real estate. I care not what you particularly choose to do, but definitely make sure that you're creating other streams of income. Do not be fully dependent on one source of income, on that one job, on anything else. Please, for the sake of you going to be in Facebook groups, telling people you got laid off and you need people to help you. It is not a game out here. So either you can use platforms like this to kind of start learning a little bit, start opening accounts if you haven't, and playing, understanding, pay attention to memos your job is putting out. If your job puts out them emails about, hey, we're using this with AI and da da da. If your job is giving you an ultimatum about using AI or highly suggesting you do, that right there is telling you something. Make sure that you do that and keep your skills up and let it be known publicly what you are doing with AI at your job if you're in one of those situations, right? And also start thinking about what you're going to do on the side. Start thinking about trying to start paying off some debt if you have debt to pay off, because it could happen to anybody. The people at Oracle who got laid off thought they would still have a job today. They thought they were going to get paid this week. They thought they were, paying off their mortgage next month. Okay. So I want you to be, really conscious of what's happening. There's a lot of people getting caught unawares that they were on a layoff line. And it's not because they were doing a bad job. It's not because, and I want you guys to understand this, the way companies are laying you off, as someone who's a consultant who consults for companies like this, the layoff has nothing to do about how well you do your job. It has nothing to do with that. It has something to do with they want to free up money so that they can buy more tools for the people they keep to use. That's what this is about. Because if you unfortunately get laid off at some point, it's a lot of, damn, what did I do? Why didn't I see it coming? Well, I'm here telling you that there's a possibility it could happen to you depending on what you're doing. That's why I'm encouraging folks, start learning this stuff, even if it's around your job, being public about what you were doing as well. And also building your own side income. I don't care if it's real estate. I don't care if you choose to own a service business. I do not care. But it is critical for you to have these things. It's critical for you to have those multiple streams of income, whether that's YouTube for you, because you're a YouTuber and you're getting, the Google check and getting brand deals. Make sure you have that solidified. So in case anything happens, you have a way to continue to pay your rent or pay your mortgage, keep your electricity, internet, and buy you some food at the least point of things, because things are getting very interesting, out there with a lot of the changes in AI. So one of the things I'm doing is I'm going to be teaching a class locally to me in my city, because guess what? A lot of these business owners where I'm at, they want a class on AI because they want to learn how to use the tools that they've already bought. So I know a bunch of accountants and everything else that I'm going to have a class with and teach them how to use the tools that they've already paid for. That means the people in their company don't know how to use the tools, because if they did, their bosses, the owners would not be coming to my class. So when they learn what those tools need to be doing or how to use them with AI, there's a possibility that for maybe one or two of them or more, they might try to cut the chaff in their business, because they're like, if you're not here to do the thing and I have to pay this other lady to go to her class and sit in her class for 3 hours to learn this, then what use are you to me? And that's the kind of mindset that small businesses tend to have about things. So please, 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 whatever your job is, particularly if you're office worker, you're a knowledge worker, please make sure that you are starting to familiar yourself with different language models, familiar yourself on how to use them in how you do your job. That way you can avoid, hopefully, the chopping block. And when you do that, please start exploring what it might be like for you to have a side hustle, for you to be an entrepreneur, because this is not really a choice for a lot of people. Explore what that might be. Maybe that might be YouTube for you. Maybe you're really good at creating the viral following on TikTok and getting the followers and getting the brand deals. Maybe it's selling your skills. Like I sell my expertise and I sell my skills in the realm of building revenue systems for businesses using AI and automation. That's one of my skill sets. Or I work with other influencers who are trying to further monetize their accounts, and I work with them in building automations and sales and marketing pipelines so that they can sell whatever they need to sell. Whatever that's going to be for you, there's a whole bunch of stuff from you to choose from. This is not the time to be like, nah, I don't need that. Now, some of you might be in a great place, but for most people, you are going to need to kind of build some type of security because it's going to get really rough out there. And I don't want to see too many more, which there will always be more of people talking about how the layoff went down. Because you might go to work one day and your keys don't work. You might turn around and try to log in, and you can't log in no more. Or they might call you into that Zoom meeting to have a conversation with HR or that call. And every time that happens, trust me, from experience, it does suck. So anyway, that was my first stream here. Hopefully this came out pretty good. If anything I said resonated with you, let me know in the comments. We will be doing this more often, talking about the things that you can do to prepare so that you're more prepared, so that you can enjoy your life and not have the anxiety of, oh my God, I might get laid off. Anyway, I'm the Nerdy Entrepreneur. If you would, please make sure that you subscribe to my channel. I put up videos talking about these things and talking about how you can learn how to monetize my channel. If you have any questions, make sure you drop it there and make sure to follow. Love being here. See you guys later.